Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be looking at a Mythic Plus in the pre-patch on my Druid. Playing Resto this time, I'm going to be giving it a go. Healed a couple of Mythic Pluses and actually normal and Taurus already, just to test it out. And again, nothing's really changed for Resto Druid. Flourish has our artifact ability in, so we haven't even lost it. It just has become one spell that we used to use together anyway. Just to show which legendaries I'm using Pride as, and I'm using Lady and the Child. I still think Lady and the Child is amazing if you can get it right in Mythic Plus, just to put Moonfires on things, do some extra DPS. The tank's gone a little bit ham here, so we're just going to make sure that he stays alive. But, I mean, our healing isn't much of an issue. Tanks are kind of like... kind of hit and miss at the moment. And what makes me say that is that I've seen tanks go into this, like that tank did then. Went in, knew how to use his cooldowns, is obviously a good tank. We have good DPS to go with it. Everything was fine, right? I used a cooldown on him, so he was never really at risk of dying, whatever. He then went to a point of... like, I've seen other Mythic Pluses where I've done this on a lower difficulty. They've pulled less mobs and the tank's health is spiking like hell. And tanks just seem to be one of like the hardest hit classes by this at the moment. By like just the changes in the pre-patch. So yeah, it's really weird to see just the difference. But honestly, I'm glad I've got a good tank. Hopefully that'll make this run nice and smooth. Unfortunately, there's no gear swap in Mythic Plus anymore. Sad face. It really wasn't something that needed to go. I think it added another element of skill, knowing when to swap gear, knowing what gear to swap to, what was coming next. It gave good game knowledge, and now it's just a case of pick something at the start and hope it lasts, basically. So we go through the first phase, and again, Pride as super important. While the damage at the moment isn't that bad, if you fail something, that it seems to be one-shots a lot more. It seems like the damage balance isn't quite there for these dungeons. Pride as gives you that room that you can just ignore it, honestly. I didn't heal once that fight. No one really took damage. And, I mean, yeah, I'm probably the lowest geared here. Didn't worry about it at all. I mean, when you start looking at it, apparently he's using a tank trinket, because why not? Touch of Karma. Everyone has their own way of dealing with things, but yeah, I mean, Pride is just 7.5k damage absorbed. Just something that takes me just that little bit, that means I don't have to heal so much. Can do a little bit more DPS. So 1.5k DPS, obviously our DPS is not anywhere close to an actual DPS anymore, which I'm happy about. I'm happy that DPS, have a spot in a group, not just like flipping healers everywhere. It's a shame our Pally looks like he is a bit bugged, unfortunately, but I'm sure he can relog and get back in. But yeah, my focus at the moment is trying to find that balance again between healing and DPS. And what makes me say that is that healing, like I said, it seems to be more... it's either going to insta-kill you or it's going to do a pathetically low amount of damage. You've got to try and find where it sits in that. I could have got that Ursul's Vortex a lot better if I'd have just played it. There we go. I mean, look at this. Like, no damage so far in this run, all of a sudden gets two-shot. Like, it's just so bursty, and you have to be reactive to that. But even on that, we managed to pull 28k damage, which doesn't sound much, but it's still a good chunk of these mobs' health now. And that it all helps. So yeah, I think this is where Mythic Plus is heading to right now. Whether we'll see the same thing in BFA, I imagine so. Honestly, I imagine it's still going to be healers trying to get as much DPS out as possible, because, I mean, that's what they're about. It's about min-maxing. I've tried Feral Affinity. I like Feral Affinity. I do obviously have let's see how much Chatoyant Signet. That's how I'm going to say that. Which is obviously very nice, very helpful for Feral Affinity. But I'm finding myself not wanting to get into melee. I'm taking Volcanoes at the moment as well, so there's no real reason for me to be running Feral Affinity. I don't gain that much DPS out of it. Pure single target, yeah, absolutely. Feral Affinity does win out, but in this situation, it's just unnecessary, honestly. Get the Vortex down in time this time. Get Moonfires out on everything, and we're pretty good to go. But again, you just see how bursty things are. So the talents I'm running: Scenario Ward, Wild Charge, Guardian Affinity, Mass Entanglement, Cultivation, Inner Peace, and Flourish. You can run... So I'll talk through all of the talents after this run as to why I'm running, or after this boss at least, as to why I'm running each talent, because there is different reasons, but there's also a variety of talents that you could run right now that's completely viable. So I don't want people to think that this is the only way you can run it. Of course it isn't. You can definitely do your own things. So to talk about the level 15 tier, Prosperity, terrible talent, unfortunately. It's not one that I would ever recommend. Abundance, fantastic raid talent, but Scenario Ward I think wins out in Mythic Plus, just because, like I said, very, very bursty damage. If you put it on someone who's known to be squishy, this is going to keep them alive. We did manage to kill it while it was down, lucky for us. Wild Charge, you can use any 3 in here. Renewal gives you less mobility, but a nice self-heal, so depends what you want. Again, with very bursty damage at the moment, a nice self-heal isn't the worst thing in the world. Let's get my Merciless Vortex down again. Guardian Affinity reduces the damage we take, which one in itself is nice, but also gives us Frenzy Regen, which is amazing talent. Definitely recommended, because if you find something that's going to one-shot you, and later on things will. I tried a 13 lower Karazhan earlier. I tried a 13 lower Karazhan earlier, and the arcane elementals in front of Moros just insta-killed people. Like, was doing 30k damage. So, yeah, I think that it's... You just need as much prevention of insta-kills as possible. So, yeah, Guardian Affinity, I think he's probably the best. Like I said, Feral works if you're going to be doing a lot of single target damage, but that's not really what Mythic Plus is about. We then go into our CC tree. You can use anything here. An extra stun is never a bad thing. I like Mass Entanglement because sometimes I use Cephas, and it's just the best way of proccing it ever. Am I going to be able to kill this before it procs? Maybe I am. So I'm not even healing the tank right now. I'm going to get grabbed back in a second anyway, aren't I? Yeah, so an extra stun isn't that bad. Typhoon, again, you can use pretty much anything. Typhoon doesn't proc Cephas, though, from what I remember, so maybe that's not the one to take. We then look at the 75 tree. I don't think Soul of the Forest is ever worth it. It's nice if you want to use the Soul of the Archer talent, but I don't think it's worth it. It's just a base talent. And then you've got Cultivation and Incarnation. Both very good. Incarnation gives you more burst and more sustained survivability through certain fights. I mean, 30-second defensive, as well as the fact that it gives you a lot more healing. But it's a little bit unnecessary for Mythic Plus. I've never found a situation where I was like, you know what would really help is Tree of Life. Whereas Cultivation, you just put rejuves out on everything, does really, really help. Gonna just use Tranquility, because, you know, why not? And Inner Peace, speaking of Tranquility, I would say the two best talents right now is Inner Peace and Spring Blossoms. Spring Blossoms isn't obviously ideal for Mythic Plus, because you don't want to keep casting Efflorescence. Very, very high cost ability. Doesn't really pay off all that often in Mythic Plus, so Inner Peace is where I'm going. Stonebark is viable as well if you have one of these really, really squishy tanks. Stonebark is going to be your best friend, honestly. You're going to actually need it. It's not even going to be a case of you want it. It's going to be almost mandatory, because you're going to need to use the defensive on them every pull, and the extra hot damage, hot healing is lovely. Now let's talk about the last tier, because Photosynthesis, Germination, and Flourish, all very good talents. Now, I would still say Germination is probably the best talent for Mythic Plus. And obviously that's just the rejuve spam on everybody. Get 2 rejuves out on everybody and keep them all topped up. If you're going to do that, probably run Amanthal's Wisdom, sorry. But Photosynthesis, while your Life Bloom is on yourself, your periodic heals heal 15% faster. That is just like a massive haste buff, which I don't know. I don't often keep Life Bloom on the tank. Honestly, because most tanks are able to keep themselves up if they're a decent tank, and if they're not, they're going to be bursted anyway, so Life Bloom isn't going to do all too much for them. So I don't really worry all too much about it. However, if I keep it on myself, it's going to be healing everybody 15% quicker. Really nice talent choice. Maybe it's something I'm going to try and play around with. But Flourish has your Essence of Gahanir and obviously Flourish in one talent now. So it is a really big cooldown on a 1.5 minute cooldown, which isn't that long. So I don't know. All three are viable. You play whichever one you want. I presume Germination's probably the recommended one. But hey, you do you. You do you, boo-boo. We're going to end this on 98% trash, unfortunately, as well. The damage in this group is just insane. I'm only doing about 1,000 DPS, which isn't much, but every little helps. And at the moment, 1,000 DPS doesn't seem like it would help at all. But really, it does actually make a big difference. I've been in runs where healers haven't touched DPS at all, and you really do notice things dying a little bit just slower. So, yeah, we're going to kill that, kill this 2-pack over here. And this was a nice, clean run. Like I said, I think this is probably the best setup for healing at the moment. I think Resto Druids are very, very strong at healing. And boom, we can insta-kill the mob. And yeah. 11 minutes, 9 seconds. Not a bad run. Obviously, it is only +9. He has got a +12 key, so hopefully we're going to be able to do that. Maybe we'll see you in there. Thanks, guys, for watching. Catch you later.